Are you wondering where the next batch of 100x's might come from? Well, if so, stick with me here because I'm about to take you through a step-by-step guide on how you can participate in and potentially capitalize on one of the hottest trends going on in crypto right now, Polkadot PLOs. This is my complete 101 guide to Parachain loan offerings, and it's a video you absolutely cannot afford to miss. I hate to kill the vibe, but there's a disclaimer I need to outline. I am not a financial advisor, and anything you see or hear in this video is purely for entertainment, illustrative, and demonstrative purposes. Also, it's important to note that I hold DOT in my personal portfolio. If you're new around here, then welcome. My name is Guy, and it's an absolute plaisir to meet you. On this channel, I curate and craft some of the highest quality crypto content you'll ever find. News, reviews, coin overviews, and market moves too. If that sounds like something you crave, then make haste and engage that subscribe button. Oh, and ping that bell as well to get notified whenever a new video flies. Ready for the ride? Okay, let's crack on with this Polkadot Parachain guide in full stride. Now, before we dive deep into the Polkadot Parachain slot auctions, let's just briefly review what parachains are, how they work, and why they exist in the first place. If you know all about that, then feel free to hop along to a different section using the timestamps that I provided in the video timeline below. As many of you will know already, Polkadot is a smart contract compatible blockchain that launched in May of 2020. Polkadot was designed and founded by Ethereum co-founder Dr. Gavin Wood with a goal to deliver the most robust platform for security, scalability, and innovation, and to, quote, deliver on the promises that Ethereum simply could not. Now, as you might have guessed already, this statement is a reference to Ethereum 2.0, an infrastructural upgrade that was supposed to be implemented soon after the Ethereum mainnet went live in 2015. Ever so slightly behind schedule on that, aren't we? Now, jokes aside, given that Dr. Wood is the former CTO of the Ethereum Foundation, it should come as no surprise that Polkadot's underlying architecture and design share a plethora of similarities with ETH 2.0's. From a purely fundamental standpoint, Polkadot's central chain and foundational layer is called the relay chain, which uses a proof-of-stake consensus mechanism. Because Polkadot was designed to function as what is called a Layer 0 multi-chain network, the relay chain in itself does not natively support smart contract functionality, and it only handles a handful of transaction types, namely those pertaining to staking. Polkadot garners its smart contract functionality from the additional blockchains that can plug into its foundational relay chain. This is primarily because Polkadot's relay chain can provide Layer 0 security and scalability for up to 100 different Layer 1 blockchains connected to the relay chain as parachains. But what the hell is a parachain, you may ask? Well, don't fret, I have you covered. Parachains are all those diverse Layer 1 blockchains that run in parallel within the Polkadot ecosystem on both the Polkadot and Kusama networks. Connected to and secured by the relay chain, parachains share and benefit from the security, interoperability, scalability, and governance of Polkadot. Now, Polkadot's innate cross-chain composability allows for any type of data or asset to be transferred between parachains through a system called cross-chain message passing, or XCMP, which, in turn, opens up a new horizon of use cases and potential applications in decentralized finance, gaming, NFTs, and much, much more. I find this to be quite the groundbreaker, as it enables a plethora of blockchain infrastructures to build on top of and develop within its ecosystem, while also furnishing Polkadot with a value-rich, dynamic, and deeply interoperable network. Now, because both Kusama and Polkadot's relay chains can only support up to 100 parachains each, parachain slot auctions are how both networks will decide which blockchains will connect and interoperate with the primary relay chain. These auctions essentially confer the right to become a parachain. Now, although I covered parachain slot auctions in my last video about Kusama's PLO structure, a few new details have come up since then that warrant a re-examination of the process overall, especially as it pertains to Polkadot's PLOs. But if you're keen to know more about Kusama's Parachain slot auctions, you can check out my latest video I made on it, which you'll find up there in the top right. Now, as most of you will know already, there are three main types of parachains, with these being parachains, parathreads, and common good parachains. Now, what I'm about to say could be a bit complex, but bear with me here, folks. Regular parachains are acquired via the parachain slot auction process. This system is very similar to that of a traditional auction. In fact, parachain slot auctions involve bidding on a particular slot on either the Polkadot or Kusama blockchains using real capital, in this case, DOT tokens for Polkadot and KSM for Kusama. As opposed to a regular auction system, however, the winner of a parachain slot auction is determined by a snapshot, which is akin to a screenshot of the blockchain at a random time that's executed shortly before the auction ends. Projects looking to secure a slot on either the Polkadot or Kusama networks can bid for their slot using either their own DOT or KSM, or they can leverage a crowd loan system called a Parachain Loan Offering, PLO. This is in order to source the necessary amount of tokens required for their slot from their community and their investors. Now, whichever project manages to secure the highest amount of DOT or KSM when the snapshot is taken essentially wins the Parachain slot auction. The process behind Parachain loan offerings is indeed very similar to that of an initial coin offering or ICO. But for investors, a key difference between a PLO and an ICO resides in the fact that crowd loan participants maintain full ownership and control over their tokens. In fact, as opposed to swapping, say, USDC, ETH, or BNB for tokens at ICO price, participants can time lock their DOT or KSM and loan them to the project in exchange for its native tokens, which will then be airdropped to the contributor's wallet. Now, if the project competing for a Parachain slot wins the auction, all contributed funds will be locked for a dedicated period of time. If, however, the project has raised a number of tokens that is below the required threshold at the time the snapshot is taken, all funds will be returned to the crowd loan contributors. Furthermore, the DOT or KSM tokens you give to the projects competing for their slots never actually go to these projects, as the loaned tokens simply get time-locked in a smart contract that connects the project's parachain to the relay chain. Now, once the parachain lease period is over, all the KSM or DOT you initially contributed will be returned to you. But here's the good part. You still get to keep the project's native tokens. In other words, you don't actually have to give up your tokens nor cough up any additional money to participate in a PLO. Very nice. Now, that being said, there is a catch. Time. In fact, if you contribute to a project that ends up winning a Parachain slot auction, the DOT or KSM you loaned to the project will be locked and vested for a period between 6 months and 2 years, depending on the project's lease period. This could prove to be a problem, especially if DOT and KSM suddenly explode in value. If your DOT or KSM is locked for the entire duration of the lease period, this means that you will not be able to access it for quite some time, and thus you'll not be able to sell it nor stake it. Therefore, you have to make sure that the project you're loaning your DOT to is legitimate and will give you a substantial amount of tokens to remedy your inability to sell your DOT at the all-time high. But more on that later. Next, we have Parathreads. If you're curious to know what happens to a parachain after its lease period is up, well, it is allocated within the Polkadot network as a parathread. You can think of a parathread as a pay-as-you-go parachain system where a project can deploy capital to access the security, connectivity, and scalability of the Polkadot blockchain for a specific period of time. Now, let me briefly explain how this works. In essence, parathreads open up the competitive parachain auction system and lower the barrier to entry for projects to gain access to the benefits of Polkadot's shared security structure. With parathreads, Polkadot becomes more accessible to projects that perhaps don't possess the startup capital or the community strength to bid for a parachain slot. This essentially gives them the opportunity to join the Polkadot network and benefit from higher throughput functionalities, security, and liquidity. With parathreads following a pay-as-you-go model, projects joining the network as parathreads will need to pay a fee in either DOT or KSM for each block they produce. Then we have common good parachains. Common good parachains, also known as governance-granted parachains, are allocated by Polkadot's on-chain governance system and are deemed to be a common good for the network's entire stability. These might entail cross-chain bridges from Polkadot to other chains and token issuers, for instance. Common good parachains are usually considered system-level chains and typically do not possess an economic model of their own. The main finality of these parachains is to primarily help remove transactions from the relay chain and streamline its functionality, thus allowing for a more efficient parachain processing system overall. The first real-world functioning parachain to ever launch was StateMine, the Kusama instance of Polkadot's governance-granted parachain StateMint, which launched in June of 2021. As a common good parachain, the slot for StateMine was granted via governance instead of an auction system, and the primary use case for both StateMine and StateMint is to deploy generic assets from fungible tokens to stablecoins, CBDCs, and NFTs, and to ensure block production, inclusion, and finalization. Now, I know that was a lot to take in, but Polkadot does have a complicated architecture. And believe it or not, I've only just scratched the surface. I'll leave links to the docs below should you want to have a gander at them. But now that we have a better understanding of what a parachain is and how it works, let's dive into how you can participate in one. If you choose to do so, of course. Now, however, I must stress that anything you're about to see or hear me talk about here is purely for demonstrational purposes only. Capiche? Bellissimo. Now, earlier in June of this year, Kusama announced its first batch of parachain slot auctions, signifying the culmination of a multi-stage process. The first auction took place over 7 days, and the bidding period ended on June the 22nd, with the winner being determined retroactively, with the endpoint of the auction selected at this block number on June 17th, 2021. The highest bidder for the first auction was Karura, a protocol building a DeFi hub for Kusama and acting as Acala Network's sister chain. Then, after a period of relative silence, uncertainty, and multiple delays on the finalized date for the launch of the Polkadot Parachain slot auctions, on October the 13th, the Polkadot team, together with Parity Technologies, officially announced Polkadot's technical readiness and maturity to start deploying its own PLOs. All systems go. Shortly after the announcement of technical readiness for Parachains, the proposal, known as Motion 118, was submitted to the Polkadot Council to begin auctions on November the 11th, 2021. According to the proposal, the first batch of 5 auctions would take place with 1 new auction each week, with a second batch of 6 auctions to take place with 1 new auction every 2 weeks. The first batch of 5 parachains will be onboarded to Polkadot at lease period 6, which is scheduled to begin on December the 17th, 2021, as opposed to being onboarded immediately as Kusama's parachains did. The second batch of 6 parachains will be onboarded to Polkadot for lease period 7, which is scheduled to begin on March the 11th, 2022. Now, each auction on Polkadot will assign a parachain slot for a total of 96 weeks divided into 8 12-week lease periods, as opposed to Kusama's 48-week leases. For simplicity's sake, I'll leave a timeline for what the first and second batches of auctions will look like. Here's the first batch. And here's the second. Now, similarly to Kusama's parachain auctions, each 7-day auction on Polkadot will consist of 2 periods, starting period and ending period. For Polkadot, the starting period is 1 day and 18 hours, and the ending period is approximately 5 days. Bidding for the slot ends on the 7th day, and the precise moment of the auction's close is determined retroactively and on the blockchain through a verifiable random function. This is done to prevent any last-minute auction sniping. Now, what I'm about to say is very important, so please pay close attention here. Users looking to participate in the Polkadot PLOs should note that they will require unbonded and unstaked DOT tokens in order to participate, and the current unbonding period on Polkadot is 28 days. So, if you're looking to contribute to some of those mighty crowd loans, please do make sure that the DOT you intend to use has been successfully unstaked. Now, the first thing you'll need to do in order to participate in the Polkadot Parachain loan offerings is to make sure you have some DOT tokens on the go. If you don't, then you can pick some up using the exchanges I've linked to in the description. There are two main ways through which you can contribute to Polkadot PLOs, with these being via a centralized exchange that offers PLO contributions, or via Polkadot's native browser extension, Polkadot JS. Now, each method has its own pros and cons. The pros are that, for instance, participating in PLOs through centralized exchanges is way easier and more of a streamlined process overall. There's also usually a separate bonus pool, at least for most of them. And there are also options for liquid staking, as is the case for Binance-issued DOT or BDOT. On to the cons, though. Firstly, contributions via a centralized exchange mean that the DOT you end up loaning is locked for the entirety of the lease period, or approximately 2 years, with a centralized third party. On top of that, contributions via centralized exchanges tend to produce less rewards than if you were to contribute directly to the project through the Polkadot JS extension. Now, pros and cons aside, I recommend choosing whichever option you are most comfortable with. Now, the simplest way I've found when it comes to contributing to the Polkadot and Kusama PLOs is through the Kraken exchange. This is because Kraken allows you to contribute to Parachain projects directly from the comfort of its platform, without having to engage with decentralized wallets, token transfers, or manual allocations. If you guys want a bit more of an overview of Kraken before you use it, then I have a dedicated review which I'll leave a link to in the top right, which you can come back to and watch later. Anyways, allocating to Polkadot PLOs on Kraken is a pretty straightforward process. Firstly, all you need to do is make sure you have enough DOT in your wallet, as most of these loan offerings will require a minimum of 5 DOT tokens per contribution, which you can either deposit or buy directly on the Kraken exchange. Once you have your 5 or more DOT, navigate to the Earn tab, which you'll find in the top left, and click Parachains. Then select the project you would like to contribute your DOT to, select Contribute, and Confirm. And that's it. Bravo! Piece of cake, right? Now, the second way to participate in the Polkadot Parachain loan offerings is through the Polkadot JS browser extension. Just a quick disclaimer here. This method is a bit more intricate, but I must say that I do indeed prefer it, as it allows you to contribute directly to the project without having to go through the bottlenecks that come with using a centralized exchange. Now, the first thing you'll need to do is navigate to your Chrome or Firefox browser, search for polkadot.js.org/extension, also linked to below, and click Download for Chrome or Firefox, depending on your preference. For simplicity's sake, I'll be using Chrome here. Now, once you've clicked Download for Chrome, click Add to Chrome and then Add Extension. You'll then be able to see your Polkadot JS extension in the Chrome extension section. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, the next part is really important because Polkadot JS will be providing you with your own personal seed phrase. So, please make sure you store it safely and don't share it with anyone, okay? Once you've clicked on the Polkadot JS extension, you have two options. Firstly, you can restore an account using a pre-existing seed phrase. To do this, navigate to the plus button in the top right and click on Import Account from Pre-existing Seed. If you don't have an account, don't fret. Just click on Create New Account, write down your seed phrase and store it somewhere safe. You can now tap on Next Step. Create a descriptive name for your account and select a strong password. If you must save this password somewhere, save it in hard copy form by writing it down somewhere, i.e. off your computer. Now, this password is very important because in order to contribute to Polkadot's PLOs, Polkadot JS will ask you to sign each and every transaction you're looking to make, which, of course, will require that you insert your password. So, bear that in mind. Now that you have your Polkadot JS account set up, the next thing to do is to navigate to polkadot.js.org and click on Apps. Then navigate to the Polkadot chain via Parity, click on Accounts and tap on Add Account. Now this is where your seed phrase comes in. Delete the seed phrase you are presented with under the mnemonic seed section and add your seed phrase in here. Insert your password and that's it. Your Polkadot JS account is ready to be funded with DOT tokens. To fund your Polkadot JS, you can either transfer DOT from another Polkadot JS account or send DOT from a centralized exchange. To do so, make sure you are on the correct chain. In this case, the Polkadot relay chain, and then send your DOT tokens from a centralized or decentralized exchange to your address, which you'll find right here. Once DOT has successfully been transferred, you will be able to see your balance under the Accounts tab. Now that your Polkadot JS account has been funded, you can then start allocating your DOT to the projects you like the most. Now, in order to do so, return to the Polkadot JS web terminal, navigate to the Network tab, click Parachains, and then Crowdloan. You will subsequently be presented with a list of all the projects actively competing for a slot. Once you've decided which protocol you'd like to allocate DOT to, simply click Contribute, insert at least 5 or more DOT, click Contribute, insert your password, and sign the transaction. Your contributions will then appear below the Raised tab next to the Contribute button. And congratulations, you've just contributed to your first Parachain loan offering on Polkadot. However, I will always urge you to do your own research before you decide to blindly ape into the first project you see on here. And if you're keen to know more about a project competing to become a Parachain on Polkadot, you can always access its official website directly from here, and at times you'll also be able to participate in its crowd loan from there as well. Now that's it for most of my video on Polkadot's Parachain loan offerings, guys. I know you've been dying to know more about this one and also about how you can participate in them. I will also be following up this video at some point with a deeper dive into some of the projects competing for these PLOs, so do keep your eyes peeled for that one. Overall, I believe that both the Polkadot and Kusama PLOs constitute a huge opportunity here, especially for those who are planning to hold their DOT for the longer term. The only downside I see to these contributions is the time factor, as all contributed DOT will be time-locked for approximately 2 years. This means that you will not be able to sell your DOT if its price skyrockets. But that's a decision that only you can make. So if you're ready to give up your tokens for 96 weeks, then by all means, I think you should go for it. But on one condition. Promise me that you will do your own due diligence here, as not every project that wins a Parachain slot auction is guaranteed to succeed in the future. That being said, be it via a centralized exchange or the Polkadot JS extension, you'll now know exactly what to do in order to participate. And that's the video done for today, folks. But I'm sure you'll have a myriad other questions, so please don't hesitate to let me know and shoot me a question down below. Do you hold DOT in your crypto portfolio? Have you contributed to a PLO? If so, which one? I'm really curious to know. Remember to subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell if you'd like to keep getting the highest quality crypto content on the scene. Make sure you also check out the Coin Bureau Clips channel to get all the information you need on emergency crypto market updates, crypto projects, and Coin Bureau updates right away. I'll see you again very soon, but until then, this is where I can be found: TikTok, Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribing to my weekly newsletter will make your crypto life better. It's rich with all the tools, tips, and tricks that will make your gains stay forever. If you have some extra cash laying around for a tea or a sweater, that's super. So, thank you so much for watching, folks, and I'll see you all very soon. Ta-ta for now.